Hey there, I'm Lance and I'm a gamer.
I'm Sam and I'm a non-gamer.
And we are Love to Hate, where we help gamers find great games to play with non-gamers.
And today we're taking a look at SpeedCicleta by Sapient Ape Games.
Now, SpeedCicleta is a game that is coming to crowdfunding here in the very near future, so make sure to check out the link down below in the description of this video after you watch it. Now, as you might guess, this is a racing game in which you and the other players are cyclists, and you are going to be racing from the start line to the finish line, and the first player to get there is going to be the winner. However, there are going to be all sorts of obstacles on the path. You're going to be going over intersections, railroads, having to deal with trucks and buses and pedestrians. You're going to even have to deal with moose and squirrels and mises. All sorts of things are going to be getting in the way, not to mention the other players are going to be trying to sabotage you as well. Let's go down to the table where I'll show you how this one works, and then we'll come back and share our thoughts on it as a gamer and non-gamer. All right, I have SpeedCicleta on the table. Let me show you guys this race game. Now, I do want to make sure you understand everything you see here is prototype, so the final artwork and maybe even some of the rules might change once it's released from crowdfunding. I do want you to be mindful that the rules very well could change, as this is a game in which they are still kind of working through some of the rule book and making some changes along the way. So what I share with you in this portion of the video may be different once it's released from crowdfunding. That being said, what you have here with the components, you've got lots of tiles that are going to make up your race pathway, the road that you are going to be riding down. You've got some bicyclist meeples here. These are really kind of cool. And you have cards, extra tiles, and then extra components that are going to be obstacles, hazards, if you will, out here on the race course, trying to slow you down and make your life miserable. Now, what the objective is in this game? Well, obviously it is to be the first player to go from start to finish, and if you can do that, then you will win the race. Now, with this game, what you'll be doing is you'll be drawing and playing cards from this deck and trying to move your cyclist down the road. Now, on a turn, what's going to happen is there may be some of these obstacles that you see over here that may already be out on the race. Could be part of setup. It could be because of an action earlier in a previous round. But if there are any obstacles that are out there, and if you are in control of any of those obstacles, then you will go ahead and move them, such as vehicles or pedestrians. And I'll explain this in more detail here in just a minute. But the very first thing that you would do on a turn is to move one of the obstacles that does in fact move. After you have done that, then you will draw cards from this deck until you have a maximum hand size of 7 cards. And once you have 7 cards, you'll decide what card you want to play. You can only play 1 card on your turn, so let's cover what the different cards in the game are. You have 4 different types of move cards that are going to move you 1, 2, 3, or 4 spaces. And they look like speed limit signs, and very plainly it just lets you move however many spaces the card lets you move. Now, by space, what that means are these little segments that might be, there might be 4 segments on a tile because this is an S curve or a really sharp turn here, and so you have to slow down, in other words, so you're going to need 4 spaces of movement to work through this tile, whereas this is a straightaway, perhaps even downhill, and it's only 1 space. This whole tile is 1 space. Now, intersections are a little bit different. You actually have to count 3 spaces on each intersection because you count this space right here. You must stop for the intersection, so this is another space here, and then this is a space, so 3 spaces, 1, 2, and 3. And that is true about railways here in any kind of intersection. So that's how spaces are defined. Now, you can, if you want to, play one of these movement cards, but refuse to move for that turn. You can play the card in your player area in front of you, and then on a future turn, you can play another card and kind of add up the movement and spend it all at once in 1 turn. And I'll explain why you might do that here in just a minute. But know that there are movement cards in the deck. There are also going to be gotcha cards, or cards that you're going to be playing against other people. Take that kind of cards. And so this one, Flat Tire here, they're yellow. These cards are going to be yellow that you're going to be playing against the other players. And what they're going to do, these are going to be condition cards. And that player who you play this on will have to keep this card face up in front of them in their player area. And until they resolve this card, they cannot move in the race. And how this works, at the very end of a turn, this is going to be the last step of what you do on a turn. If you have one of these in front of you, you're going to rotate it 90 degrees. And then again, on the next turn, you'll rotate it 90 degrees. And as you can see, it's got these arrows here. And again, you'll rotate it 90 degrees. And then after 4 turns of rotating it 90 degrees, the card will be upright again and it will resolve itself. Now, there is a way to be able to resolve these condition cards, and that's by drawing these blue cards here, such as a spare tire, and it tells you that you can use it to repair a flat tire. So if you have a flat tire played against you, you can play your spare tire to negate it. And you can do that immediately, as soon as they play the card on their turn even, you can play that and it negates it, or you can use it as your card on your action. Say you draw it from the deck, you can play it and negate the flat tire. But even better than this spare tire is to draw one of these safety cards that are green, puncture-proof tires. Now this prevents you from being able to get flats, but it also protects you from nails, which are going to be one of the hazards that could be played out on the road. And so you've got protection against both of those. Think of this as immunity. And this stays in front of you the entire game. Once you've played it, it's in front of you for the rest of the game. But you don't want to just play this preemptively. You kind of want to wait until somebody plays one of these condition cards against you, because if you have this card and you play it against the condition card as soon as it's played against you, then you not only get immunity from the flat tire, but you get to advance your cyclist 1 extra space. That's what this 1 is here next to the shield. So these green safety cards are really nice, and there are going to be 4 of them in the deck, and you have to be lucky about drawing one of them. You can only have 1 safety card, and so if you already have one, you're going to have to discard the others, but they're really nice, and they protect you from anything bad happening to you as it relates to that specific card. Now, I've mentioned hazards or obstacles several times, and there are going to be lots of those in the deck. They're going to be orange, and they're going to be play immediately. So if you draw this out of the deck, you have to play it immediately. And sometimes it's going to be a car, which cars are going to start here at the start line and move in the direction that the bicyclists are moving. And each card tells you how it's going to move, but essentially what they all do is if they catch up with a cyclist, once they move onto the same space as the cyclist will actually move 1 space backwards. You're slowing down to let the vehicle pass you, in other words. And they'll just continue down their merry way until they get to the finish, and then you'll take them off the board. There are going to be animals, though, such as squirrels or foxes, and those are going to have you placing them on specific spots out here on the board, and they're just going to be obstacles in the way, such as this squirrel here requires 2 or more movement to pass by. So I mentioned earlier that you might want to build up movement, and this is one of those reasons, because if you don't have enough movement to move past an animal as it's denoted on the card, then you can't move. And so that's why you might want to build up movement. Now, I do want to point out, when you play one of these hazard cards or obstacle cards, you do get to play an extra card with it. That's what this +1 down here means. So this isn't the only card you get to play because you're forced to play it. You do actually get to play another card. Now, there are going to be hazards that you place out on the road, such as the nails, the slick spots, the rough parts of the road. There are also going to be pedestrians, which sort of act like the vehicles, except they move much slower, and they're going to start at the finish line, or they're going to start ahead of all of the cyclists and move in the opposite direction. And essentially, it costs you an extra movement to move past a pedestrian. They're just kind of in the way. Now, pedestrians also don't stop at the intersections. They have the right-of-way. They get to move faster through these intersections than the actual cyclists do. And so that's another thing that kind of just throws a wrench into your plans as you're working around them. So you have these hazards, these obstacles out in the road. Now, once you've played your card, then you get to move your bicyclist if you've played any movement cards, and you would resolve any of those condition cards that I showed you, the yellow cards, rotating them 90 degrees, and then it would be the next player's turn. And you would just continue to do this until somebody reaches this finish line, and once they do, then they win the game. There are some other things that I do want to point out, and on the back of the player aid here, you do have player aids in this game. It has a nice little tree right here to show you that the busted wheel fixes, or excuse me, the multi-tool fixes the busty wheel, but even better, the shock absorbers fix the busted wheel. Plus, they give you that extra movement, those green safety cards. So this is a nice little player aid for the game here. And as you can see, you've got your turn action order on the back side of the card. Now, I do want to point out that everything that I told you about how you play around, you can do that, or you can throw it out the window. After you've moved any of your obstacles, you can skip all the other actions to do drawing up. So if you don't like the cards that you have in your hand, you can discard as many of them as you would like, and then draw as many of those cards that you discard from the draw deck. You don't get to move, but you might get better cards in your hand. The last thing that I'll cover right here in this portion of the video is showing you that there are lots of tiles, because honestly, half the fun with this game is building out the race course, because every time you build it, it is random. It is going to be different. You're going to have little sharp turns. You're going to have straightaways. You're going to have lots of intersections. The more intersections that you have, the more difficult it is to plan for, because you do have to stop your movement for these spots. You can't just keep flying through the intersections. I don't think I explained that earlier. The stop sign means you do have to stop no matter what your movement is at that point. If you have leftover movement, it's wasted. So you do have to kind of take that into consideration as you prepare through the race course. But that's pretty much the gist of this one. So now let's go back up top and share our thoughts on SpeedCicleta.
And we're back, and now we're going to share our thoughts on SpeedCicleta from a gamer and non-gamer's perspective. So Sam, this is, I mean, in my mind, the first thing that comes to my mind when I think of this game is thematic. It is a very themey game, right? Like, you are a cyclist, you're just trying to go fast, you're trying to get around these obstacles, you've got buses that are coming up behind you, running you over, not literally, but you kind of feel like they might. And you've got pedestrians that won't get out of your way.
The size of a house.
Yeah, the moose is huge in this game. But no, you've got all these things that you're just dealing with.
Yeah, I think at one point we had a bus, a pedestrian, a moose, and a squirrel
all in the same S curve, right? Like, and even the S curves, you have to slow down. They take more speed to get through. So it's just a very thematic game. What'd you think about this one?
Yeah, it was fun. I mean, when we first got it out, it reminded me of our race car games.
Okay.
What am I trying to think of?
Like Formula D.
Yeah. It's not
Heat.
quite like that, but that's just kind of where and which have always been our favorite family games.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And it is. I mean, it has that idea of just trying to get from point A to point B as fast as possible. It is a classic racing game. But I think what kind of sets this one apart a little bit is that you've got all these different, like, chaotic obstacles that are just popping out left and right. And they some are stationary, some move from start to finish, some move from finish to start. And you just kind of have to, like, prepare yourself as best as you can. But the more you kind of hold in your hand those cards that keep you safe, the slower you're going to go, because you're not going to get those speed cards. You're not going to get those cards that let you go faster. So there's that tough choice of, do I play it safe and hold on to these cards that keep me safe, or do I let those go so that I can get the faster cards and go and see how it happens, see what happens with it. So what did you think about that mechanic of, just drawing cards, discarding cards, and you're really wanting to get those speed cards to kind of get around these things?
Yeah, I mean, I thought it worked really well. I wasn't sure at first with the first hand that I got, but as you draw more and your hand starts to change, you kind of figure out how that works with the game, and I thought it was pretty good. I did think that maybe there was too many helper cards for the yellow cards.
Oh, okay.
Because at no point did either one of us really get damage from those things. So.
Yeah. So, like, what Sam's talking about are those conditions that you can sabotage the other players with. And if you're somebody who's like, oh, I don't like take that, this game does have it, but there's lots of opportunities. Like what she's talking about, there's lots of opportunities to get yourself out of it.
Yeah, but it's kind of like, oh, I just wasted a turn to get you to slow down, but you already had a card to kind of block it. So.
Now, I'm sure there are times, like we said, if you're not playing it safe and you're like, I just want those speed cards, you could really get yourself in a bind, right? And really be affected by those condition cards. So I think it can go both ways in this one. You just got to weigh out how people are playing and what you want in your hand, right? Yeah, so... I thought it was a really fun game, and I think the coolest thing about this one is the variability in how you set up the map.
Yeah.
Because it's going to change every time you play it, and you can use all the tiles and make the longest track and play the longest game if you really wanted to, and just be, you know, having all this chaos out on the board and just seeing who can deal with it the best. So this is a game where it's who manages chaos the best is going to be the one who does really well in this one. So I liked it. I thought it was a really fun game. And I think it's going to be one that really connects with a lot of families because it's got the lightweight racing nature theme to it, and so I think it's going to click really well for a lot of gaming families. So the game, excuse me, is SpeedCicleta. It is from Sapient Ape Games. It is coming to crowdfunding here in the very near future, so make sure to check out the link down below in the description of this video now that you've watched it.
Make sure to like and subscribe and push that bell button so you get notifications of all our new content.
I'm Lance.
I'm Sam.
And we are Love to Hate, where we try to bridge the gap between gamers and non-gamers. We'll catch you next time.